right, CWC, we need to have a conversation. We need to have a conversation about Hulk Hogan announcing the creation of a brand new wrestling company in 2025. And before you roll your eyes, as I know some of you already are, we got to break this down together, because the real question we need to ask is this: is there actually room for another wrestling company in the year of 2025? So grab yourself a notepad if you have to, because today we're not just talking Hulk Hogan, we're talking the entire wrestling ecosystem. How much is too much? What works? What fails? And what's left for someone like Hulk Hogan to even build upon? Let's look at where we are right now. We've got WWE pumping at full steam. We've got Monday Night Raw. We've got Friday Night SmackDown. We've got a lot of people who say NXT is the best wrestling you can watch on TV. You have, on the flip side, you have AEW. They've got Dynamite. They've got Collision. You have TNA on its comeback trail right now with a partnership with WWE. We've got NWA. We've got New Japan Pro Wrestling. We've got Evolve trying to make a dent. Even MLW, GCW, any three letters that you could throw together, there's pretty much a wrestling company that exists under that moniker. And there's basically wrestling on television every night of the week. You just have to know where to look and you will find wrestling. It's not just on TV, it's streaming, it's on YouTube, it's on TikTok, it's on whatever weird ass Pluto TV channel that TNA end up existing on. And all of a sudden, here comes Hulk Hogan making this big announcement this week with a new startup wrestling company in 2025. So we have to ask the question, is this overkill? Or is there still space on the map for something new in the world of professional wrestling? First thing we have to figure out is, what is the actual hierarchy of wrestling companies right now? Because I see debates thrown around, but there is a actual reality to what the ecosystem and the hierarchy looks like. And let's be real, at the top, there's WWE, okay? If you want to get even more micro-specific, it's probably Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown sitting on the top, depending on if you like chocolate or vanilla ice cream. Right underneath that, as far as I'm concerned, is NXT Wrestling. Now, I've said lots of people in this community, they'll slot NXT at the top, and I'm not mad at that conversation. I think we can all generally agree that WWE is the top dog in the wrestling world. I think where you get into a little bit of debate is what happens after WWE. I've seen people throw out the TNA. I've seen people throw out AEW. In all honesty, the way I see wrestling talked about, I still think AEW holds the number 2 spot as far as overall companies go. Sometimes they look strong. Sometimes they look like they're being held together with Gorilla Glue. Tony Khan is all over the place, but ultimately, as far as market share goes, and especially in conversation of pro wrestling, I think that AEW is the second dog in the race. TNA is slowly crawling its way back into relevance. The crossover with WWE has been one of the best things that have happened to TNA wrestling. I think over time they could find a niche that sits right in line with AEW. But I think, if you're looking, it's WWE, it's AEW, it's TNA, and then it's everything else. And you could argue your New Japan Pro Wrestlings, but I'm speaking specifically from the United States, the capital of pro wrestling. And so you got your New Japan Pros, your NWAs, your Evolve, which is the kind of newest brand of WWE. All these niche contents kind of sit at the bottom, and they have the very hardcore sicko fan bases that tend to get very in the weeds with those company. But there's another side to all of this, right? You don't have to be WWE or AEW to be successful. Like I say, you can carve out a lane. You can build regionally. You can stream on Twitch or different platforms, and you can lean into heavy gimmicks, nostalgia, live experience. There's room to cook. So here's the question that I want to know right now. What's your current wrestling company power rankings? And realistically, where do you see this new Hulk Hogan run promotion landing within that list? If I just had to throw out my take right now as far as where Hulk Hogan's promotion will fall on this list, I don't know that this thing ever sees the light of day, so I don't know how much stock you can put into where it's going to fall. But I just don't have the faith in Hulk Hogan putting together a competent wrestling company that could even rival a TNA. I think this thing's going to fall somewhere in the world of more like a local indie promotion. That's more what I see in the world of a Hulk Hogan, Eric Bischoff. I know they've got some wrestling experience, but to me, the sheer just starting up and the crowdedness of professional wrestling, it's going to be hard to get the assets to actually get people to pay attention. But let's ask the harder question. Why do most new wrestling companies fail in general? And does Hulk Hogan have the ability to avoid that fate? We've seen it before. We've seen giants like WCW fail. We've seen ECW burn out. Lucha Underground had if you talk about assets, they had a lot of the right people to make it work, but they just couldn't keep the lights on. And you have guys like Freddie Prinze Jr., who's had promising visions and the right ideas, and he's seen these things just kind of fall off a cliff even before they get off the ground. Trying to build a new company in this era is like walking into a burning building with a spray bottle. It is extremely difficult to even imagine. You're already behind before you get started. You're probably underfunded. You probably have no infrastructure, and all of the big talent they're not giving you an opportunity to even bid on them to come represent your company. But let's not pretend that this isn't Hulk Hogan, a guy who, as hated as he is in the world of professional wrestling, he still can move numbers. People still pay attention. This video that they put out, whether you like him or not, it has rattled the wrestling world and people are talking about it. So you could say what you want about Hulk Hogan, and we'll talk about Hulk Hogan, but his name still holds weight, especially with the casual wrestling fans who don't have the deep dive into the world of Hulk Hogan. There are nostalgia heads who still love the great American hero, to TV executives who don't know the difference. And let's be honest, a lot of these TV executives don't know the history of wrestling, and they couldn't tell you the difference in a super kick and a suicide dive. To a lot of these people, he will draw interest. He will draw investors. I think he gets the meetings that he needs to get. He can book a venue. He can get an interview on TV, and that kind of stuff matters. So what's the verdict? Is Hulk Hogan doomed to repeat history, or does his name hold enough weight right now to sneak past the graveyard of failed promotions and actually stir a little bit of the pot when it comes to wrestling? Now, this might be the most important question that we have to ask. Can Hulk Hogan actually succeed when a huge portion of the wrestling world hates his guts? Let's not sugarcoat this. We said we'd talk about it, but Hulk Hogan has burned so many bridges. The racist comments, the ego trips, the backstage politics, the weird revisionist history in every interview he does. He's got heel heat in a way that's not fun. It's go away heat. Hulk Hogan is the definition of go away heat when we're talking professional wrestling. It's not the boo, you suck. It's why are you still here? Why are we still having to listen to you? And in an age where social media accountability and transparency and that stuff is so important, the narrative never goes away anymore. This will keep getting brought up, keep being thrown back in his face, and this will be a hill that Hulk Hogan has to climb. But like I said earlier, here is the sick truth about the world we live in. There will be people who still show up to support Hulk Hogan. People will still chant. People will still buy the merch. They will still show their kids old clips of Hulk Hogan and say, this is the guy that made wrestling cool. And as long as there's a built-in audience that misses the 80s brand of wrestling, Hulk Hogan is going to have a sliver of power in the wrestling ecosphere. So what do you guys think? Is Hulk Hogan too toxic to build anything new, or does he still have just enough of a name to make casual fans care one more time? So let's end this on a fun note. If I handed you a check right now and I said, start your own wrestling promotion, who are the first 3 names that you're calling out? And I'm not talking about, it's not Tony Khan. You don't have an unlimited pocketbook. You can't pluck people, major names. I'm talking about realistic names that you think you would have an opportunity to acquire. And so here's how I would play it out. If I was starting a wrestling company today and I had a decent startup amount of money to get started, but not unlimited pockets, I can't go after the biggest names. The first name I think I would throw money at to try to get to come to my company would probably be a guy like a Samoa Joe. He's aging, but he gives you instant credibility, very dangerous, still very capable of anchoring your first 12 months on TV. I think that he seems like a very, very much a team player kind of guy, a guy you could build a business around, who is reliable, who is no nonsense. He'll patrol the locker room. I just feel like Samoa Joe has earned that right to be the top guy. I think you could put a strap on Samoa Joe for 12 months and people would pay attention. He's not going to draw in the big, huge national numbers, but he's going to get wrestling fans interested in what you've got going on. So after that, I think I'd take the checkbook out and I'm writing a check to a Dolph Ziggler, a guy who's instantly recognizable visually, a guy who may be closer to retirement than he is to his world heavyweight runs, but the reality is he never got his proper due in WWE, and I think that a lot of fans would sympathize if you really pushed a guy like Dolph Ziggler forward. Like I said, fans would recognize him. He would get that internet pop, that internet buzz. All of a sudden, you're presenting Samoa Joe and Dolph Ziggler out to the world. I think that they would pay attention enough to give you a chance. Then finally, I'm going to rely on some heavy gimmick work, and I'm going to go after a high theatric guy. Give me like an Elias. I think an Elias is the kind of guy where you turn the lights off, you play the guitar, heavy gimmick. If you could pluck him away from TNA, probably get him at a reasonable price. You're going to overpay for all these people. But if you get him, you're able to start a company with 3 recognizable names that aren't going to break your bank, and you start to fill in with a lot of indie talent, a lot of just hardworking, good value wrestlers, I think is what you look for. Build on the concept that we're going to be small, but we're not going to be a shit show like AEW. We're going to work heavy on gimmick material, unlike the reality era of WWE. I think that works. And just as a bonus, I would pick up the phone and make the call to Tony Khan, because while I don't think he's willing to will and deal with a WWE, if I had enough money, I would make the offer to try to get a Britt Baker. And I know she's not favorable everywhere, but I'm a huge Britt Baker fan. I think if you could get a Britt Baker, if you could somehow base your promotion in Florida so she doesn't have to travel, if you could get a Britt Baker to lead your women's division, I think all of a sudden you're looking at a roster with Samoa Joe, Dolph Ziggler, an Elias, and a Britt Baker. I think I could anchor that in a lot of promotion. I could sell a lot of t-shirts. I could probably get a lot of internet buzz with this group. And I think I could really establish myself as a new wrestling company with a lineup like that. So if I'm Hulk Hogan, these are the kind of people I have to target. If I'm Hulk Hogan, first thing I'm doing is, I don't know what my relationship is with Tony Khan, but I'm asking, what's the deal with Britt Baker? How can we make a situation work with Britt Baker? I'm trying to see whose contracts are kind of falling apart in TNA, who WWE's not. You're not going to get a Joe Hendry, so you gotta wipe that out of your brain. You more have to look for the Dolph Zigglers, the maybe Mustafa Ali's, even the Moose type of character, guys who have made enough of a name for themselves, but they haven't transcended and they're not necessarily on the WWE radar so heavily that WWE will overpay. You can't get guys that you can't get into the mud with a Tony Khan where he makes you overpay. Like, because there was a thought of like going after a Bobby Lashley, but I imagine Tony Khan has taken care of a Bobby Lashley pretty well. So I thought Samoa Joe's probably the guy that you could get if you pay just a little bit too much for. But I gotta ask, if you were starting a wrestling company today, who are the 3 picks? One legend, one vet, one up-and-comer. Build me a fantasy roster that you could use to build and promote a new wrestling company. So let's run it all back. Let's wrap it up real quick. Is there room for more wrestling in the year of 2025? Can Hulk Hogan succeed with so many companies and so many people that have failed before him? Is there any chance that this thing actually works? Plus, I need to know your top 3. If you were handed a booking book tomorrow, who are you signing? Hit the comments, blow up the Discord, because CWC, if we don't talk about this now, we are going to be watching Hulk Hogan try to leg drop on YouTube at 3 a.m. and wonder where it all went wrong. Let's talk about it.